That's it. And I will be really curious to see how how that shows up in like your sort of in your return to land life. Because you're not going to be on the boat, even if you do end up in a paid role. It's not every year, it's not all the time, right? Like it's
No.
so there's a lot of opportunity coming up for you to be on land and I'm just I'll be really curious to see how that unfolds for you, you know.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because last night the founder of the race, Sir Robin Knox Johnson, was is here in Oban and was talking to some of the local sailors at the sailing club and talking about you know the sense of adventure and the sense of challenge and the sense of feeling alive, doing things that are pushing your limits and pushing your what you believed was possible for yourself. And I've said lots of times before the race, that I've helped people do that through my coaching for basically all of my working life.
Mm.
My job has been to help people learn more about themselves and what they're capable of than they knew that was there before, right? And so to take this year to do that for myself felt like something I had earned. Felt like something that was true to who I was trying to be for other people. And once you've done that, and Robin said this last night, you get a sense that you're curious what else is there. You're curious what more there is to learn, not because you're not satisfied with who you are or where you're at in life, but because there's a feeling of being alive that comes with having yourself in difficult, challenging situations. And whether it's on your own or working with others, finding a way through that and coming out the other side. And, I think you and I have talked on the podcast about what we call type 2 fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's in the moment, it's intense, it's dangerous, it's, extreme, but you come out of it and just there's so much joy and fun attached to having done that together and figured out a way through it. And that's something that I think is very hard to put down after you've experienced it before.
Yeah.
And so I think whatever comes next will be informed by that feeling of whether it's, I've talked about going and taking cooking school, or, I've been inspired by people on the boat who speak lots of different languages. Like there are so many ways to get that feeling that don't involve sailing across
It's
the
not
stupid
necessarily
ocean.
the boat, the ocean. It's more the feeling of
That's right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that will inform what I do next. Not necessarily the sailing part, although it might end up being part of it. It's continuing to work with people that want to experience that feeling and want to see what their boundaries are, and then also for myself finding ways to do that broaden my own perspective on my potential.
Amazing. I'm gonna save one of Karen Cross's questions as well. We'll see that next week. But the one I'm gonna ask feels like it's pertinent to hear too. How does it feel to know that the year-long journey is almost over?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've answered this in different ways a little bit, but it feels there's a lot of different emotions. It definitely is a mixed bag. It's there's definitely an excitement and a looking forward to what I know is ahead, which is well, I get to see Monique, and be together again after 6 months in Portsmouth is one.
Yay.
I have a wedding for Katrina where I get to walk her down the aisle.
Yay.
And see all of my sister and family and parents and my ex-wife's family and siblings. And so like getting a chance to celebrate, and David's family, getting a chance to celebrate that day with everyone, having, sailed around the world to get back to the same place. That I'm really looking forward to. I've got a road trip with my youngest daughter, Danielle, out to her university in Nova Scotia. So to spend a week or two with her, going to be amazing. So there's an excitement and anticipation for a lot of that. And then there's a sense of, I don't know, it's not sorrow, but I'm sorry that it's coming to an end in some ways. Yeah. Like there's I know I'm going to miss a lot of what has been, part of this past year, both from the team and the sailing aspect, but also just that, that simplicity of life that we've just been talking about, and being in nature, immersed in nature, and sort of in awe of the planet, and the ability to go all the way around this bloody planet in a sailboat. A sailboat doesn't go very fast, so we've done something pretty amazing, and to put that down, there's a bit of sorrow that's attached to that, I think. So so it's a mixed bag, and I'm pretty proud of myself. Proud of not so much the accomplishment, because that's certainly been a huge team effort, but the way I've conducted myself, the way I've been able to show up and support other people. Like I'm pretty proud of that, having done that for a year, given the circumstances have been challenging and some of the people have been challenging, but it showed me that I can walk the walk as well as I talk the talk, at least.
Yeah. Wow. That's so true. I mean, it's been really fun to be able to witness that you've given us this opportunity to kind of witness as this has happened, and Mel and Karen, these questions like felt so right on. So thank you for those too. We have about 5 minutes before we're planning to wrap up. I'm curious, Andrew, about wildlife. Actually, we've talked a little bit about like the elements of the sky and that sort of thing, but we haven't, was there any interesting wildlife on this? Because this was pretty northern Atlantic in the spring. So I don't know what all that would mean. I'm sorry, not in the spring, in the summer.
Yeah, it was actually fascinating because we didn't see almost anything for the first half of the race from DC up the coast, right near Newfoundland, and then curled eastward, and then right around the midpoint, all of a sudden, in the UK, people said, well, now that we're on the UK side of the Atlantic, things will get better. And sure enough, somehow they did. We saw a shark right off the side of the boat. We saw seals. We saw another. We think it was a blue whale. Might have been a sperm whale, but one of those two big guys.
Yeah. Wow.
Quite a few whales, and lots and lots of dolphins, and then the birds started to show up more and more as we got closer to shore. So it was a pretty full on nature experience. And I'm trying to think if there was any particular. There wasn't anything like the boobies on the way down the West Coast.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because one of the things that I've really been inspired by from the race is to learn more about how animals communicate. Because I just have this sense in watching them that, well, for sure, there's a lot more going on than we understand. And actually, back to the boobies, like there was this weird sense that somehow, somebody was sending out like a chain email to everybody to let them know there was a boat to hop on if they were looking for a free ride, because it was just like this accumulation of birds that kept coming and
growing in number, right? From what you had said. Yeah.
And whether dolphins coming from, you could see them like 2-3 miles away. You could start seeing these little splashes that were heading straight for us. and just understanding a little more of how all that works and what senses different species have that allow them to pick up on whatever noise or vibration or energy we're giving off, and even how they interact with each other. It's really humbling to sit, and I said this even before Clipper, that if you sit on the shoreline and watch nature for a few hours, you should be pretty humbled because to watch the birds, playing in the wind, or to watch fish or other species interacting with their environment, it's just phenomenal to see what they're doing and not know how it's happening. To me, it's really a humbling thing. And it just gives you the sense that there's so much more out there in terms of intelligence, in terms of sensory abilities, beyond what we humans have, or different than, not beyond necessarily, but different than what we humans have. That would be really cool to understand. So yeah, the nature was cool. I mean, it's been a big part of the whole trip as we kind of come to the end of the trip. You do worry about parts of the ocean that don't seem to have a lot of life left in them, and how much of that is human, caused by humans. But when you do see it, you really appreciate it. Even to the last pod of dolphins, it's still inspiring when the dolphins come along the boat and swim with us for an hour or so, and then for some reason they take off
and they decide you're done and it's time to go.
It doesn't get boring. It never gets boring.
Wow. Well, it's like, I think this has come up a little bit, certainly in the last couple of conversations, because you were saying that, like, it doesn't get old, but also expressing your curiosity about the kinds of intelligence that there simply are in the world, and just that seems like a really fascinating thing for you.
Yeah, I mean, I've read it in some places, but perhaps it's just sort of come home through this experience that, whether you call whatever you think intuition or gut instinct, or, whatever words you wanted to use to describe that sense that we have as humans of a decision, or, something that just seems to be, it just shows up and we don't know where it's come from. This happens when you coach really well from an empty mind. Like, there's a question will pop in your mind, or a curiosity will appear, and you don't know where it's come from. Like, you didn't force yourself to think through what's the right question to ask now.
No, you're just in the flow.
Yeah. I just get this sense that whatever that is for humans, more than likely is connected to whatever's going on in that natural world or that environment beyond ours, because we're interacting with it all the time. Like, how it can't be separate.
Yeah.
Right. Whether we understand it or can understand where it's coming from, who knows? But I think it's a fascinating thing to open your mind to the possibility that we could tap into the same wisdom or intellect that allows birds to fly, millimeters off the water without ever touching a wave. What about that informs, our ability to have intuition and to trust our own instincts better?
Yeah.
Because I think, to me, like for coaching, but I think just in general in life, that's been the biggest aha for me, is when I started to trust my own instincts and my own intuition and my own clear-minded thinking. When I started to trust that more, I made far better decisions and behaved in a far more, reliable way. And to do that, you have to give away some of the control that you always need to be thinking about every situation and, conscious in every moment. You can give away it and just know that there are sources of intuition and intelligence that are beyond what we consciously are aware of. And I think nature's part of that. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Well, thank you. Wow. It's interesting too. We have our son Max is almost a paramedic. Like he's in clinicals right now. He's come through a year of training for that. He's been an emergency room and ambulance worker now for like he's been an EMT for several years. And we got to talking the other day about so our bodies, depending on what's going, there's some condition through which the paramedic knows what's happening, or at least has an idea of what's happening, because a person's breathing will deepen and get faster. So both they're both breathing really deeply and they're getting fast. The breath is fast, right? And what apparently what's happening is the body is transferring some substance that is really uncomfortable and doesn't like a lot into the CO2 that is about to be released from the body, like breathed out. And I was like you, all these things that happen inside of, I said to him, it's like reverse peristalsis, which is basically throwing up. Like my brain does not want my body to throw up, right?
Right.
Sometimes your body just has to throw up. And he's like, oh, he's like, he said almost exactly what you just said, which is like, our brains have nothing to do with this. Like if we can just put that down and see all of the functions that just naturally happen due to the process of evolution and the sort of coming through, it feels like it's really linked in a way. Like there's so much untapped, I don't want to say potential, because it doesn't necessarily have to be doing anything. Like it's not about a sort of a predetermined outcome, but like, wow, there's just so much that we don't know.
Yeah. 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 And I think that's a really interesting area to explore with people is, when you can quiet your mind down and when you can let go of the need to try to control or be in control of every decision and right, every outcome and what the future looks like, and trust that in a very, open-minded state, both sort of conscious, open-minded, but also energetically, just sort of a very neutral, stable state. The right information shows up, and where it comes from, who knows? And whether it's the only information, it maybe not, right? Maybe there's lots of different pieces of information that can show up. But I've found that the more that I've learned to trust that, the more those decisions have worked out, because they've come from a place of alignment with what I want and where what's important for me. It's not from a place of trying to concoct something, it just, there's an alignment piece that just feels right. And when it doesn't feel right, it's a great signal that you're not in that place.
Yeah.
And it's a good time to pause, right? And just give yourself permission to let go and some space to let a different idea appear or a different direction appear. So yeah, that's, I think just being around nature so intimately for the last year, it's just sparked a curiosity to learn more about, how it is that animals think and behave and interact and sense and all of that. And, what, if anything, there is to learn from that.
Wow. Very cool. Well, where are you headed next?
Where am I headed next? I'm going to go for dinner, fish and chips. And then tomorrow we're taking a bunch of our sponsors out on the boat. Should be a wet, stormy day, but that's all right. And then Saturday is crew briefing or race brief day. Get the boat ready. And then Sunday we depart for Portsmouth, about 900-mile, 5-day or so trip. And we won't actually go and finish the race at the end of the next race. We'll stop about 10 miles off the shore of Portsmouth Harbor, so that the very final day on the 27th of July will be a sort of a ceremonial race to celebrate the end of the race with all the boats very close together, and parade of sail back into the harbor with what we're told are going to be thousands of people and spectators and the rest, and family and friends. So that's I don't want to get ahead of myself for that, but for the next 5 days it's going to be a slog around the Irish coast, and then around the southern tip of England back to Portsmouth.
Well, I hope you get some type 2 fun in there.
I really hope so as well. I hope this is not a boring light wind journey the whole way. I hope there's a little spicy weather in there.
Yeah, me too. Cool. All right. Well, anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No. As always, appreciate all the support and interest in the Facebook group, and it's been great. And for those that have been able to contribute to the GoFundMe, it's greatly appreciated. It's been a long year. It's an expensive world we live in these days. You go to countries where, like here, it's like £15 for a hamburger, which £15 doesn't seem like a lot until your credit card says that's $30 for a hamburger and French fries in Canadian dollars. So everybody that's supported, it's been such an amazing thing to see the interest and the support for what I've been doing and what we've been doing as a crew. I've gotten a real kick out of seeing some of my family and who've bought crew support T-shirts, and who've gotten follow the race viewer and the whole thing. Karen Cross came down to Washington just after you left, actually, Kay. Mm-hmm. So she was there for the departure. She was so excited. She was like our biggest cheerleader as we were leaving Washington, D.C. So it's cool because, as I said earlier, there is a sense of normalcy that happens because we're around people who are used to doing this now. So when people come into it for the first time and you see the awe and the excitement that they get from it, it's fantastic. So to everybody that supported this past year in whatever way that has been, I'm extremely grateful for all of it, and to be able to see some people in person, but to feel the support through the Facebook group and the GoFundMe has been amazing as well.
Very cool. And I feel like this is a moment to say that while I was in Washington, D.C., I don't think I had done this yet, which is why we hadn't talked about it. I got to interview like half the crew. Mm-hmm. And I am releasing those. The goal is, and I'm totally on target to do this, is to have those in the world by the time you all arrive in Portsmouth. Right. And so I'm so excited for that. So Mark Hagan was one of the folks, like that we read his, we talked about his crew log a little bit before. Like, he was one of the folks that I got to have a conversation with. A couple of people who this was their very first race in Clipper around this whole year. Like this was the first race for them. And Skipper Mike and AQP Lottie, I got to have a conversation with them. I'm super excited to bring those out to everybody listening and watching and just the world, because I'm so excited to share about these incredible people. Like, what fun to have gotten to know you. I mean, you in this capacity, but them too, like in the journey and everything like that. So yeah. So I'll be releasing those videos and podcast episodes out over the next week, and that'll be out there too.
Fantastic.
Yay. All right. Well, I guess we'll see you in Portsmouth.
We'll see you in a week. Yep.
Safe travels, and we'll see you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening. Where in the World is Andrew Moss is produced by me, Kay Locke-Culp. If, like me, you're inspired by Andrew's journey, you can follow along in his Facebook group, Climb Aboard Andrew's Adventure. The link is in the show notes. Also, this is the longest time that Andrew has been away from his family and his work. He truly has no idea what lies on the other side of this adventure. You can contribute to Andrew's adventure costs and help soften the blow of a year away from his beloved coaching practice by donating to his GoFundMe at the link in the show notes. And Andrew asks that you consider making a donation to his boat's UNICEF fundraiser, also at the link in the show notes. Thank you for listening and for supporting Andrew if you can. Join us next time when once again we answer the question, where in the world is Andrew Moss?